There is a smell that comes off a dish rag that no amount of rinsing seems to fix. You pick it up to wipe down the counter and you catch it right away. Sour, faintly rotten, a smell that does not belong anywhere near food. You rinse the rag. You rinse it thoroughly. You wring it out. Wring it as hard as you can. You lay it over the faucet to dry and tell yourself it just needs to air out. 2 days later, you pick it up again and the smell is still there, maybe worse. So you run it through the washing machine with your regular load, and for a day, maybe 2, it smells clean. Then it just comes back again. It always seems to come back anyway. You have probably thrown away more dish rags than you can count, not because the cloth was worn out, but because you could not get rid of that smell. The fabric was still good. The rag still had years of use left in it. But you tossed it anyway because you did not know what else to do, and buying a new pack costs $3, maybe $5, so why fight it? That is the part I want you to sit with for a moment, holding up a clean but smelly rag to the camera, handheld. What I am going to share with you costs almost nothing. Every little bit counts. You probably have everything you need already sitting in your kitchen, just waiting for you. It takes about 20 minutes the first time, and once you know it, you will never go back to the old way of doing this. Stay with me, because there is a part coming up that is going to genuinely surprise you, not because it is complicated, but because it is so simple you will wonder why it stopped being common knowledge. People have been paying for new dish rags, antibacterial sprays, scented detergent boosters, and specialty kitchen cloth wash cycles for years now. Too many products. The old way costs pennies, truly just a few cents. Less than pennies, if I am being straight with you. It is nearly free. My mother kept a farmhouse kitchen running for close to 60 years, and I never once saw her throw away a dish rag because of a smell. 60 years of wisdom. I grew up watching her do something every Monday morning that I did not think twice about until I was grown and keeping my own home, and realized that what she was doing was solving a problem that modern homes are spending real money to half fix with products that do not actually work. My name is Annie Hemingway. Welcome to my home. I was raised on an Appalachian homestead in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and I have been keeping a kitchen for over 50 years on what comes out of the garden, the pantry shelf, and the cabinet under the sink. 50 years of experience. Not because I'm particularly clever, but because that is what you learn when you grow up without much and you are surrounded by women who had even less and made everything last. Making things last is an art. Now, the knowledge I am passing along here is the kind that ought to keep traveling from one kitchen to the next, the way it always did before it got interrupted, passing it on. If that sounds useful to you, go ahead and subscribe. Just hit the button. There is more of this where it came from, and I put out new material every week. Stay tuned. And I want to ask you something before we get into the method itself. Just one question. Leave me a comment down below and tell me, how often do you find yourself replacing dish rags because of that sour smell, even though the cloth itself is still good? Every week? Every month? Do you toss them, or do you keep running them through the wash hoping it clears up? Tough choice. I read every single comment that comes in, and I want to know what your experience has been, because I hear about this problem more than almost any other, every single one. Now, here is what is actually happening inside that dish rag and why your washing machine is not solving it, the microscopic truth. A dish rag lives in the worst possible conditions for fabric, dark and damp. It is wet, it is warm, it is constantly picking up grease, food particles, and soap residue, and then it sits damp on a counter or bunched up by the sink, while all of that feeds exactly what you do not want growing in there, feeding the growth. Bacteria, mildew, the unseen enemies in your kitchen cloth, the kind of microbial load that builds up in layers over weeks and months, settling deep into the fibers of the cloth in a way that a regular warm water wash cycle simply does not reach. Deep inside. Your washing machine uses water that gets warm, somewhere between 100 and 120 degrees Fahrenheit in a standard hot cycle, just warm water. That is warm enough to clean most laundry. For towels and sheets, it's fine. It is not hot enough to do what a dish rag actually needs. It just isn't enough. The bacteria and mildew living in those fibers need sustained high heat to be dealt with properly, and a washing machine, for all its usefulness, is not built for that job, not sustained. This is the part your grandmother understood without ever being told the science behind it, pure intuition. She did not know the word for the microbes. The science wasn't the point. She did not need to, she just knew. She knew that cloth got truly clean in boiling water and nowhere else, and she knew that the smell coming off a sour rag was a sign that the cloth needed something hotter than a wash cycle, hotter than hot. The boiling pot on the stove was not a primitive method. It was a proven one. It was the correct one, the only one that works. That is what we are going to talk through. The full method, exactly what goes into the pot, exactly why each piece of it matters, and the habit that makes sure you never deal with that smell again, the complete guide. The washing machine became standard in American homes sometime in the middle of the last century, and it was a genuine relief. Nobody who hand-washed sheets and work clothes and towels for a family of 8 would tell you otherwise. A modern miracle. But somewhere in that shift, a piece of knowledge got left behind, forgotten. The pot on the stove, back to basics. The rolling boil, heat is the key. The method that had kept cloth clean and usable for generations before electricity came to the hollow, generations of wisdom. What a washing machine does well is remove surface dirt and rinse away loose debris. Just the top layer. What it cannot do, even on the hottest setting, even with heavy-duty detergent, is penetrate deep into the fiber structure of a cloth that has been accumulating grease, food residue, and bacterial growth over weeks of daily use. Too deep for soap. The heat is not sustained long enough. Time is of the essence. The agitation loosens what is sitting on the surface but does not reach what has worked its way in. Only the surface. And so the smell stays because the source of the smell stays. It never truly left. Here is the plain science of it, and you do not need to remember the term. Bacteria produce waste as they feed and multiply. Biological facts. That waste is what you are smelling, the actual cause. It is not the rag itself. The cloth is fine. It is what is living in the rag. Unseen tenants. And those organisms have one reliable weakness, which is sustained heat above 212 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperature of a full rolling boil. The magic number. Hold cloth in water at that temperature for 15 to 20 minutes, and you are not masking the problem. You are ending it, for good. Your grandmother knew this the same way she knew that a wound needed to be cleaned with something that would actually clean it, or that food kept cool stayed good longer. Timeless knowledge. She knew it because she watched her mother do it, and her mother watched her mother before that. A family tradition. The method did not survive for generations because people were sentimental about old ways. It was practical. It survived because it worked every time. Reliable results. Now here is what you need, and I want you to see how short this list is. Just a few things. You need a pot large enough to submerge your rags completely in water. Whatever you have on hand. Any pot will do. You need plain white vinegar, the kind you can buy at any grocery store for about $2 a gallon. Simple vinegar. You need baking soda, which costs about $1 for a standard box. Kitchen staple. And if you want to add a pinch of salt, that is optional, but it was something my mother always did, and I still do it today. A little bit of salt. That is the full list. No specialty product needed. Just the basics you likely already have. No specialty product. You don't need fancy cleaners. No antibacterial booster. You don't need the extra chemicals. No scented additive. We're going for true clean, not just a fake smell. White vinegar, baking soda, water, and heat. The perfect combination. The total cost of materials, if you are buying them fresh, is under $3, and both of them will last you through months of this method, under $3. If you already keep vinegar and baking soda in your kitchen, and you should for about a dozen other reasons I will get into another time, the cost is nothing at all. Free cleaning. Here's how you do it, step by step. Fill your pot with enough water to cover the rags fully, with room to spare. Plenty of water. You do not want them packed in tight. The water needs to move around them freely. Room to breathe. Set the pot on the stove over medium-high heat and let it come up toward a boil, getting hot. While the water is heating, add half a cup of white vinegar directly to the pot. Half a cup. The vinegar does two things at once. It helps break down grease and soap residue that is built up in the fibers, and its acidity makes conditions hostile for the organisms you are trying to eliminate. Dual action. Then add 1 tablespoon of baking soda. 1 tablespoon? Do this slowly because vinegar and baking soda will react. You will see it foam up. And if you pour the baking soda in too fast, you will have a mess on your stove. Watch the reaction. Slow and steady. Patience is key. Let it settle. Just a moment. Now add your rags to the pot. Time to clean. Push them down so they are fully submerged, deep under. If they float up, that is fine. Just press them back under when you stir. Keep them covered. Bring the water to a full rolling boil, then reduce the heat just enough to keep it at a steady simmer boil, not a furious bubble, but active and hot throughout. Set a timer for 20 minutes. The wait begins. While those rags are in the pot, you will notice something. Look closely. The water will darken. Change is coming, depending on how long it has been since the rags were last properly cleaned, and for most people it has been never, because this method stopped being common knowledge a long time ago. The water may turn quite brown, years of grime, grayish, yellowish, not a pretty sight. Sometimes all three, the full spectrum of dirty. What you are seeing is what the washing machine left behind every single time you ran those rags through a normal cycle. Forgotten dirt. It is not a small amount. Quite a lot, actually. The first time people do this, that pot water genuinely shocks them. A true revelation. That is not a failure of your cleaning habits. Don't blame yourself. That is what the method reveals, and it is also what the method fixes. Total restoration. After 20 minutes, take the pot off the heat and let it cool until you can handle it safely. Do not rush this. Let the pot cool until you can handle it safely. When the water is cool enough, remove the rags and wring them out thoroughly. Rinse them well under running water to clear away the vinegar, the loosened residue, and anything else the boil pulled out of the fibers. Then hang them to dry completely, fully dry, not just damp, before you use them again. If you have a clothesline or a sunny window ledge, go ahead and use it. Sunlight adds a natural finishing step that the mountain women in our hollow used without calling it anything in particular. They just knew that cloth dried in the sun came out fresher, and they were right. When those rags are dry, pick one up and smell it. Not a faint improvement, it's a real difference. It is not a masking the odor kind of clean. Gone. The smell is simply gone, because the source of it is gone. Now I want to be straight with you about this because that matters more to me than sounding impressive. Boiling will not save every rag. There is a point a cloth reaches where no amount of heat and vinegar is going to bring it back. And I would rather tell you that plainly than have you waste time on something that has already given what it had to give. Here is how you know. Hold the rag up to a window or a light source and look at the weave. If the fibers have thinned to the point where you can see daylight clearly through what should be solid cloth, that rag is done. If the fabric is fraying at the edges in long pulls rather than short, clean threads, it is done. If it has developed actual holes or tears through normal use, it is done. Boiling is a cleaning method, not a resurrection. Good cloth that has been neglected will come back beautifully. Cloth that has genuinely worn through its useful life needs to be retired, and there is no shame in that. There is one more honest thing I want to say. If your rags have been sitting damp and bunched up for a long period of time, weeks without drying properly, stored wet in a closed space, you may find that even after boiling, a faint smell returns within a day or two of use. That is not a failure of the method. That is a sign the cloth had deeper mildew damage than one round of boiling can clear in a single session. Do it again. Let the method work. 2 rounds of boiling with a full dry between them will handle almost anything a cloth can develop through normal household use. If after 2 rounds the smell persists, that rag has reached its end, and the method has done its honest job of telling you so. What boiling cannot do is substitute for the daily habit that keeps rags from reaching that state in the first place. I will come to that in a moment. Let's look at the calendar. The women in our hollow did not boil their dish rags as a rescue operation. They did it as a matter of routine, the same way they swept the porch or rotated the pantry shelf. It was a regular habit. My mother boiled her kitchen cloths every single Monday morning, without exception, winter and summer both. It was not a special occasion, it was just Monday morning. It was just Monday. The routine was set. The pot went on while she got the rest of the morning started, and by the time the breakfast things were cleared away, the rags were done and hanging on the line. That rhythm is the system, and the system is what makes the method stick. Here is what I want you to build into your week, a simple habit. Pick one day, any day, the same day every week, and make it your boiling day. It becomes easy. It takes 20 minutes of pot time and maybe 5 minutes of your actual attention. Do it while something else is happening in the kitchen. The morning routine. The water heats while you make your coffee. The rags boil while you wipe down the counters. Pull them out, rinse them, hang them to dry, and you are done for the week. In between boiling days, one habit makes an enormous difference, and it is simply this. Never let a wet rag sit bunched up. When you are done with a rag, spread it open, spread it flat. Drape it flat over the edge of the sink or over the faucet so air can move around it. A rag that dries between uses develops nothing, no smell, no bacteria. It is the damp, closed, warm conditions that feed what you are trying to prevent. Avoid them. Open cloth, moving air, and weekly boiling. That is the whole system. No product required. It is that simple. If you have more than one rag in rotation, boil them all at once. The pot holds 4 or 5 rags without any trouble. It's an efficient load. And the method works just as well on a full load as on a single cloth. Dishcloths, kitchen towels you use for drying hands, the cloth you keep by the stove. Anything that lives in the kitchen and gets wet regularly belongs in that Monday pot. Here is the part that used to make my mother set her jaw a little. It was about the products. Walk into any grocery store or big box store today, and you will find an entire section dedicated to kitchen cleaning. Antibacterial sprays, detergent boosters, specialty wash bags, and disposable dish wipes on every store shelf. Some of those products cost $4, $5, $6 a bottle, and they need to be replaced regularly. The companies that make them need you to keep buying them. That is not a complaint about anyone in particular, it is just business. It is just the plain shape of how it works, the cycle of buying. There is no profit in telling you to boil your rags in vinegar water on Monday morning. Nobody can sell you that. It is too simple. So nobody tells you. The knowledge is missing. The antibacterial sprays and the scented boosters address the smell. They do not address the source of the smell. They just mask it. You spray, it smells better for a day. You buy another bottle. The cycle is set. You add the booster, it comes out of the machine smelling fresh for a week. But it won't last. Then the organisms that were never fully eliminated start up again, because the conditions that feed them, the damp cloth, the warm air, the food residue, have not changed. You buy another bottle, the cycle continues. The cycle continues, and the company that makes the bottle is very pleased with that arrangement. The old Appalachian Homestead method does not care about that arrangement. It is simple and free. White vinegar and a pot of boiling water do not have a shelf to be stocked. They do not have a profit margin. They are plain materials from the pantry. That is precisely why nobody is advertising them to you on television. You won't find it there. My grandmother used to say that the best solutions were always the ones nobody could figure out how to sell. She was not a cynical woman. She was just observant. She was just paying attention to the simple things. She also told me something I have carried ever since. It stayed with me for decades. Standing in her kitchen, watching her lift rags out of a pot with a wooden spoon worn smooth from 40 years of that same motion, that a clean kitchen is not about products. It is about habits. Habits are what matter. Habits do not cost anything once they are built, and they do not run out. So here is what I want you to do this week, just a few steps. Not next month, not when you get around to it, this week. This week, before another dish rag goes into the trash, because of a smell that a pot of hot water and $2 worth of pantry staples would have fixed in 20 minutes. First, gather your rags from every corner, every dish rag, kitchen cloth, and hand-drying towel that lives near your sink. Pull them all out. carry them to the stove. The boiling begins. Hold each one up to the light and check the weave. You'll see it clearly. Anything that has thinned through or torn gets retired. Set it aside. Everything else goes in the pot. The good ones. Fill your pot with enough water to cover them fully and with room to move. As the water heats, add half a cup of plain white vinegar. It starts the process. Then slowly, 1 tablespoon of baking soda, pour it in gradually so it does not foam over the edge. Add a pinch of salt if you have it. It's a simple addition. Put the rags in, push them under, and bring the whole thing to a full rolling boil. Then drop the heat to a steady active simmer and set your timer for 20 minutes. Walk away and let it work. It's on its own. When the timer goes, take the pot off the heat and let it cool until you can handle it safely. Wring the rags out, rinse them well under running water, and hang them somewhere. A sunny spot if you have one. Sunlight is the best finish. When they are fully dry, smell them. That is your proof. It's undeniable. Then pick a day of the week and make it your boiling day going forward, every single week. And in between, spread your rags open to dry after every use. Clean rags, no smell, no replacement cost, no product to run out of. Now I know some of you are thinking about a particular rag, the one that still smells. Go ahead and tell me about it in the comments. I'm listening. I want to hear what you have been dealing with. Tell me your story. Somewhere along the way, households stopped passing this down at the kitchen table. Every year that the knowledge stayed quiet, another generation grew up not knowing. The stores were happy to fill that gap with a spray bottle. A $2 solution always existed, but it wasn't advertised. What I want to leave you with is something that has been sitting in the back of my mind, the importance of habits. There is a whole category of household knowledge that disappeared because it could not be packaged. It was too simple. The things your grandmother knew, the plain materials, the weekly habits, the simple methods. The boiling pot works exactly as well today as it did 60 years ago. The vinegar works the same. It never changes. The baking soda works the same, a simple staple. Nothing about the method has changed because nothing about the problem has changed. That has been true since before anyone alive today was born, a timeless method. A method you put into practice changes what your kitchen costs you. And so the bottles kept selling and the rags kept getting tossed. The cycle continues. The rags kept getting tossed, and the problem kept costing people money it did not need to cost. You know now, and knowing it is the first part, but the part that matters is the doing of it. A method you know and never use is just a pleasant thought. You have to do it. A method you put into practice on Monday morning with the pot on the stove and the coffee brewing is the thing that actually changes what your kitchen costs you and how long your things last. Next, we are going to talk about what is growing inside your kitchen sponge. We are going to talk about what is growing inside your kitchen sponge and what it would take to actually fix it. If what we covered today made sense, that one is going to matter even more. The sponge problem is worse than the rag problem, and the fix is just as simple: vinegar and water. Keep your pot handy. Keep your vinegar under the sink. It's always there when you need it. And remember that the women who taught me kept a clean, well-running home for decades. The women who taught me kept a clean, well-running home for decades without buying much of anything. That is not a small thing. It is the core of it. That is the whole thing, a clean kitchen and simple habits.